Well, when I came to USC, I thought in terms of what else was I going to do other than be a student. And I had played baseball at Roosevelt High School in Fresno, so I thought I'd go out for the Trojan baseball team. In those days, they didn't have the phrase walk on. You just went out for the team, and they had a junior varsity team, so I went out for that. I didn't get very far because there was another first baseman out, a rather chubby, good looking guy named Ron Fairley. He went on to a 25-year career with the Dodgers and other teams, and then when he retired from baseball, he was the announcer for the Angels. So my baseball career went nowhere because Fairley was by far the superior player. So I got eased into student politics because in my fraternity house was then student body president Carl Terzian. 4 years ahead of me, he had finished as student body president and he came back as a graduate student to take another year of study at SC, and he stayed in the fraternity house. We became roommates, and I got bitten by the political bug, as they say. He guided me into entry-level offices, Greater University chairman, blood drive chairman. Then I went into the Squires, and then the Knights, and I got elected junior class president. And then came the big daddy of them all, running for student body president. I ran against a fellow who was a Sigma Chi in the Sigma Chi fraternity. And years later, I asked my dear friend, Mike Kazanjian, who did he vote for? Because Mike Kazanjian was president of the Sigma Chi fraternity house. He said, well, I voted for you. I said, are you sure? He said, who else would I have voted for? I said, well, you had one of your fraternity brothers running. No, he said, there was no fraternity brother of mine running against you. I said, yeah. I said, his name was Mike Thompson. He says, Mike Thompson, he ran against you for student body president? I had so preempted the field and obliterated the scene that even guys like the president of my opponent's fraternity house did not even know or were aware that he was running for student body president. I had a huge landslide, and the Daily Trojan, the official newspaper at USC, said, Karabian wins presidency in landslide. And that was rewarding, beneficial, and it gave me a lot of sideline, as we used to say, as I was conducting my year as student body president. There were mistakes I made, but everybody quickly forgot about them because I had won in a landslide and I was, in effect, the popular choice. I was always interested in politics, and getting elected student body president was an achievement in college that was unsurpassed. Oh, I guess if you had been the Heisman Trophy winner at SC or the captain of the basketball team or a great runner on the track team, you might have rivaled the student body president. But in the absence of something like that, being student body president at USC was a unique feat and quite a feather in my cap. All the papers carried it, especially the papers in Fresno, and the Armenian papers at the time, the English language Armenian papers, made a big deal out of it. It was a big thing because USC was big, and being student body president at USC was very, very significant in the minds of the general population. I was a senior in 1955 and 56 at Roosevelt High School in Fresno. Now, Fresno was divided by ethnic, religious, and jurisdictional lines. The Armenian kids in Fresno and some of the upper mobility Mexican Americans and the middle class white kids went to Roosevelt High School. Across town was the first high school in Fresno, Fresno High School, and that's where the upper class families went. Then there was Edison High School, which we used to refer to as across the tracks, where the Mexican kids and the blacks went. They always had good teams, but the prestige was on Roosevelt and Fresno High, and when we played each other, that was the big crosstown rivalry. My friend Richard Medesian is still remembered to this day as being the first Roosevelt High School football player to score a touchdown in the Fresno High Roosevelt High School game. So as graduation neared, I was going to college. There was no question about that. My parents thought that I would go to Stanford because I had a cousin who went to Stanford and then went to law school and had done quite well in the Valley. But I was intrigued by USC, by the football team primarily, and the great stallion Traveler, the SC horse that came out every time SC scored a touchdown. So I resisted, and my mother wanted me to stay and go to Fresno State. And my father finally put his foot down and said, Gladys, we're going to let him go where he wants to go. And so that was my ticket to USC. I had never been to Los Angeles, and it was quite a rude awakening for me, quite a big city. I remember coming here the first time and going through the interchange where 3 or 4 layers of freeway stacked on top of each other. I had never seen anything like that in Fresno. But it worked out well. It was challenging, and I accepted the challenge. I enjoyed it. And by the way, the student body presidency at USC opened many doors for me, many doors. One time when I was later elected to the legislature, an old lobbyist came up to me in the hall of the state capitol and he said, "What's your background, son? Did you work for a councilman or were you a councilman in your district?" I said, "No, I didn't work for one and I wasn't one." "Well, had you been in local politics?" I said, "No, I hadn't." And he was quite puzzled with that because I showed no background. He said, as he turned to walk away, his name was Monroe Butler, he said, "By the way, where'd you go to college?" I said, "I went to USC." He said, "Were you in college politics?" I said, "Yes, I became student body president." "Oh, hell," he said, "you're going to have no trouble up here. You could get to the top in the Kremlin." I didn't quite understand what he meant, but I know he was paying me a compliment because USC had sent so many prominent political figures who had been active on campus up into state government, including Senator Tom Kuechel, who was a Republican senator from California, Houston Flournoy, the state controller, Jesse Unruh, Big Daddy Jess Unruh, who was the Speaker of the Assembly, Yvonne Brathwaite Burke, Alan Cerroti. I mean, the list went on and on and on. And I was always viewed as having a good baptism, you might say, because I was student body president at USC. Well, the Democratic National Convention was slated for July 1960. My class graduated in June 1960. I had finished my term as student body president. I had under my belt the fact also that I had been the junior class president the year before, and that I had achieved many things, including being the runner-up for the most prestigious award a graduate can have at USC, the Order of the Palm. The palm leaf was the symbol of the university, and I was the runner-up. So I had a lot going for me, and a car dealer out in the valley by the name of Martin Pollard, who owned Pollard Ravenscroft Chevrolet and Cassaday Cadillac, asked a professor at USC to recommend a student to work on the welcoming committee for the Democratic National Convention. I had registered as a Republican when I turned 21, but I went to see this professor, and he sent me out to see Martin Pollard, who turned out to be a charming, wonderful gentleman. And he said, I'm going to put together a host committee. That is, students who drive cars at General Motors donates to the convention to drive around the VIPs of the convention. And I need somebody to put those students together. So I went out and recruited 300 students, mostly from USC, some from UCLA, some from Occidental, some from East Los Angeles College. And I put them together and created a system where they would be allocated to the VIPs. So when Eleanor Roosevelt arrived in Los Angeles at LAX, there was a new white General Motors car with a big emblem on it and a special California-issued license plate that said Democratic National Convention and the image of a donkey on it. And so, because in those days, Pat Brown was governor of California, so a lot of these things happened, not magically, but happened because the entire state operation, from the chairman of the Department of Motor Vehicles on down, were looking to make California a hospitable place for the Democrats to come and have their convention. So I selected all those people, and every dignitary, Democratic National Committee man or committee woman from a state, and other VIPs like Sam Rayburn, the Speaker of the House, and Lyndon Johnson, the Majority Leader, and U.S. senators from states, John Kennedy being one, although he was the junior senator from Massachusetts. They all got a USC student as their student driver. And I wrote each one of the VIPs a letter saying these students were not being paid, but were doing this because of their interest in politics. And if you can just open some doors for them, let them go to the convention, see the inner workings of politics, this will be a reward enough. Now, some of the politicians gave huge financial tips to people. Others were admitted into colleges where the Democratic VIP had graduated from. And this happened. Governor DeSalle, Michael DeSalle of Ohio, walked somebody's application through for Georgetown because he was Georgetown's #1 graduate and was destined to be a cabinet member in Kennedy's cabinet. There were 4 significant candidates: Lyndon Johnson, the majority leader; John F. Kennedy, the young, handsome senator from Massachusetts; Stuart Symington, senator from Missouri; and Adlai Stevenson, former governor of Illinois, whose grandfather had been vice president of the United States and had been the Democratic candidate for president in 1952 and 56, losing both of those elections to General Dwight Eisenhower. So in my position, I had exposure to these 2 prominent candidates. We all realized that it was going to be Johnson or Kennedy, and nobody foresaw the fact that Kennedy would take Johnson on the ticket. Now, we had some prominent politicians here in Los Angeles who were active. Mayor Norris Polson, Supervisor Kenneth Hahn was a tremendous, dedicated Democratic local official. And so, as we went through the convention, I had the kind of badge and tickets that allowed me to go to every session of the convention, walk in any part of LA Convention Hall, this was the LA Sports Arena, and to visit with these people. And this was in days before this massive security and keeping the political figure a distance away from regular folks. So I had several occasions to chat with Lyndon Johnson and a couple of major ones to chat with John F. Kennedy. I had introduced Kennedy to the USC campus a year before when he came out here. And so it was rewarding for me when they established the Democratic ticket as John Kennedy for president and Lyndon Johnson for vice president, because I had at least known both of them and had photographs signed by them with them. So it was a high point in my career, and shortly after the Democratic convention, I changed my registration from Republican to Democrat. And then the rest of my political career, I was, of course, a Democrat. I didn't waste my time as student body president. I knew it was a golden gift that had been given to me, and I reshaped student government at SC. I pushed through a new constitution. I brought along a candidate I wanted to succeed me, and unlike most people who pick candidates to succeed them, I picked one who actually won, and I was quite proud of that. Then I went off to New York University to law school because I had won a big scholarship on the Root Tilden program. But I didn't like the East Coast. It was cold, and the people were distant, and so I came back and finished my second and third year at SC Law School. One of the things I engaged in while in law school was the Department of Justice had created a program for law students to learn the difficulties of being a policeman on a beat. And they selected Hermosa Beach as a place to do this program. So I applied and I was selected. I think there were 9 or 10 of us that were selected. We were fitted in uniforms. We had the first bubble helmets in the history of the history of police departments. And I had one of those bubble helmets. I had, of course, my sidearm and nightstick and handcuffs and all of that. And we worked on the weekends in Hermosa Beach. You always worked with a regular, full-time, licensed safety member policeman, and we were paid for it. And on the weekends, your duties amounted during the day to walking down the beach on patrol and looking at the girls and chatting with them. I couldn't believe what a wonderful assignment that was, to have that kind of a Saturday and or Sunday and be paid for doing that. In the evenings, we got in on a couple of arrests. I saw a suicide, very tragic to see a young boy who had shot himself. I saw a illegal bottling beer distributorship, where somebody was making his own home beer and bottling them in large root beer bottles. I saw stakeouts for various things. It was an extremely educational program for that summer between my second and third year of law school. Several of the people selected went on to become Superior Court judges. I'm thinking of John Chirowski and Evel Younger's son. Evel Younger was district attorney. It was rewarding to all of us. We all enjoyed it very much. Then, as school ended, I didn't know what I was going to do with myself, and I got a lucky break. Joe Sorrell, the great political guru here in Los Angeles, hired me to go to work for the Democratic National Committee in their offices downtown. And one thing led to another, and then I put together the campaign largely with SC friends of mine and a few Armenians, and got myself elected to the legislature in 1966.